So we'll get started here. As you may have already seen what the curriculum is, we will obviously get you hands-on with the product, and this is the product suite of products that's part of Risk Management Cloud. That's part of and integrated with ERP Cloud. So we'll take you through the next several days, starting with an introduction today of how you can make your ERP Cloud implementation secure and audit ready. And there are 6 steps, and we are going to be basically painstakingly taking you through a lot of details over several days, starting tomorrow. Today, though, we are going to lay the foundation and framework of what these 6 steps are and how they evolve and things like that. So a quick logistical thing, like this is going to be our daily schedule. So today we are going to lay the foundation, as I said. So there's going to be a lot of good discussions around what the 6 steps are, how you can make your ERP cloud implementations secure and audit ready. So we'll try to break it up in this. So we'll have an hour first, then a break, then another hour, and then a break, and then Lakshmi will take over for the last session. And then feel free to put your questions on the chat. We may not be able to get to it right away, but we promise that we'll take all of your questions. And there's going to be a dedicated Q&A session at the end also. So just note that day 1 has no labs, but that doesn't mean that there's not enough. There's a lot of foundation stuff that you need to learn, and that will count towards all the labs and exercises and lecture that you'll be hearing and doing starting tomorrow all the way till Friday. So tomorrow we'll obviously have the second set of lecture and hands-on. And starting Wednesday to Friday, what we'll do is that every time we come in the morning, we're going to be doing a quick questionnaire session. If you have any questions, we'll bring that up. If there were interesting stuff that will benefit everyone, we'll discuss that, and then we'll kick off with the lecture. So that's a quick structure of how we laid out the training. And this is going to be the agenda, as I mentioned. Today, we are going to be introducing Risk Management Cloud, and we'll be going over all the necessary foundations that we will lay and the groundwork so that you guys can actually absorb the material starting day 2 all the way till day 5. So day 2, we'll be discussing designing secure role assignments, and certifying users access. Day 3 will be going into how we can detect unexpected ERP configuration changes or master data changes, and how we can identify fraudulent or erroneous transactions, and thus find and manage fraud. And then day 4 will be spent completely in discussing a product financial reporting compliance that's used for streamlining your control and compliance processes. And day 5 will have some additional configurations that are very critical. We will learn how to configure risk management security, specifically a risk management role. And you'll be doing all these things hands-on. We'll be doing a quick demo probably of how we can configure flex fields in Risk Cloud, and finally be able to build OTBI dashboards and agents. So kicking it off with the introduction, all of you are probably already part of the Oracle ERP Risk Management Cloud, or rather ERP Cloud implementations and or Risk Management Cloud implementations. And you may have heard of a concept of something called modern finance. And people may have different interpretations of that, but Oracle basically talks about modern finance as a set of financial processes that are streamlined and makes your business very efficient. And to do that, perform that, an essential part is the necessity for controls. And controls are basically rules that your business needs to adhere, which tells the business like what should be done and what should not be. So, for example, you have rules that are part of your ERP cloud. that tells your business how to handle their cash management or ledgers or any other financial activities. On the procurement side, how to handle master data changes in suppliers, any policies in purchasing or rules, and expense reimbursement. So there's a lot more, and these are all where controls become like the rules. And the reason why the controls are so important is because auditors all around the world demand proof from organizations that they audit that their ERP cloud implementation satisfies those controls. So we have seen a lot of organizations try to take the shortcut and actually play business relay, and they hope that their controls are being enforced somehow, and they don't really have a very streamlined process in place that helps them to have the audit-ready controls. And most of the time when they are playing this business relay, what happens is that maybe most of the time it's fine, but once in a while we always hear a news in Wall Street Journal or any other big weeklies of organizations who have to go through some onerous long-term oversight because there has been an event. An unprecedented event, some kind of a fraud that has happened. And, other than regulatory fines and penalties, organizations actually suffer from a long-term borrowing power issues and even tarnishing their reputation. So a lot of you have probably been with us for a long time. We've been doing and implementing and helping our customers implement Risk Management Cloud for the last 15 years. And over that time, we have learned and we have evolved a methodology that ensures that controls are in place and they are audit ready. And based on this methodology, we ensure that before going live with the ERP Cloud, these are the 6 steps that you need to go through. So before going live with ERP Cloud, you need to design secure roles, ensure that your roles don't have separation of duties. Also use these roles and assign them to users in a very secure way to ensure that users who have role assignments don't have separation of duties issues. And then finally, before going live, we recommend that organizations certify their users' access. So even after your roles and role assignments are free of separation of duties, you need to certify whether the right users have access to the right roles. And after going live, you need to, our recommendation is that organizations continually monitor their setups and configurations and validate these. In addition to auditing transactions, and so that they can monitor and continually check whether any unexpected or fraudulent activities are going on in their transactions. And finally, to wrap it all up, we urge organizations to adopt and streamline their control management and have a process in place whereby they can take stock of their risks and controls, document them, and have an assessment process in place so that they can, at the end of the day, report all their findings and the state of their controls to the auditors. That's what auditors look for. So jumping into the first step, which is designing secure roles. So all of you guys who have been part of implementations of ERP Cloud and maybe HCM Clouds, you know that Oracle has a built-in tool called Security Console where you can design roles. And roles can be designed from the seeded roles, or you may use seeded roles as well. But most of the organizations we have found tend to customize and configure their roles. So after configuring the roles, the process that we recommend that organizations follow is that they use Risk Management Cloud now to analyze whether these roles have somehow been introduced separation of duties issues. And Risk Management Cloud can help analyze roles so that you can remediate these intra-role violations which are there within the roles, if any, and then secure your role. And the next step in the process is securing your role assignments. So all of you have probably seen during your implementations that different organizations have different ways of assigning roles. So you may have organizations follow just a manual process for assigning roles via Security Console. Organizations may also be using Oracle's recommended approach of HCM Hire or HCM Data Loader, thereby using their role mapping tool to automatically assign roles based on certain attributes like department, job, etc. Or maybe organizations are using a third-party user provisioning tool or an external user provisioning tool like Oracle Identity Cloud to assign roles to users. Either way, whichever way your organization or customers assign roles to users, you will need to then analyze whether these role assignments are done in a secure way. Are they introducing separation of duties? And that's where Risk Management Cloud comes handy. So you use Risk Management Cloud's power to analyze these role assignments, and you typically would perform, and we'll go into some details later on, this would typically be performed in a non-production. So you're basically testing your role assignments. You analyze these assignments, free them of any separation of duties issues, take stock of whatever existing issues will be accepted, and then thereby securing your role assignments. So the first step was to secure the role itself and make it free of separation of duties. In this step, you secure the role assignments to users. And then finally, often overlooked step, and a lot of organizations basically take this lightly, but this is actually a very serious one and can actually help mitigate a lot of risk, is certifying your users' access. So once you have secured your roles and role assignments from separation of duties issues, the next step, the final step before going live, typically is do the right users have access to the right roles? So a lot of times you may think that, okay, I have so many roles here, like do I need to now start certifying everything? And that's where Risk Management Cloud makes it very easy. It helps you identify only the roles that matter, and you can use the Risk Management Cloud's power to identify, I need to only certify these roles because I feel that these are the roles that are the highest risk. And once you go into the details, you will realize that in Risk Management Cloud, you don't actually specify roles, you specify abilities. And the product determines what roles have those abilities and thereby will present to you a list of users who have access to those roles, and that's where the certificate, as part of a certifier, the organization will certify do the right users have access to these roles. And finally, you will have the right users who have these approved roles, and thereby you're making your, before going live with ERP Cloud, you're at least trying to make your implementation secure. So overall, just to summarize a little bit at this point, all of these activities that we discussed, the first 3 steps before going live, actually accelerating your ERP Cloud deployment. So because risk management functionality is embedded in ERP Cloud, and it's not a third-party tool that you're bringing in, it actually is part and parcel of the entire implementation process. And we have seen that some activities can shrink as much as 80%, as it says. And the biggest of all is that if risk management functionality being integrated and embedded in ERP Cloud, and if these activities are followed, as mentioned in the previous slides, it can eliminate a lot of surprises and delays that require reconfiguration, some things that have probably been overlooked before. So those can all help in eliminate surprises at the end before going live. So now that we have talked about some of the activities that we recommend that organizations do before going live with the ERP Cloud, here are the next 3 which typically organizations would do after going live. Like one of them, key one is tracking key setups and configurations. So most of you probably are already aware that in Financials Cloud or ERP Cloud, you manage setup values using Setup Manager and setup and maintenance. So a lot of times what happens is that you could set up these values before going live also, which you do probably, and you can monitor these setups before going live. But I think the most value is when ERP Cloud is live and the implementer has walked out of the door and the customer is managing the ERP Cloud implementation on an ongoing basis, and there are needs, there are a change management needed for managing this or changing setup values or configuration values. And a lot of organizations actually lack a thorough change management process to allow these, or they have fragmented processes that actually allows unexpected changes to setup and configuration values. And that's where Risk Management Cloud can come handy, where they can continually monitor your setups and keep configurations, and any changes that are there in those can be captured using advanced financial controls within Risk Management Cloud. So your unexpected setup and configuration changes can be analyzed, and whatever unexpected changes are there can then be presented in front of humans who can then determine whether these are expected or unexpected changes. And this ensures that your setups and configurations have the approved values that's needed going forward. And this is a continual process. In addition to the monitoring the setup and configuration changes, another very high-risk area are transactions. So you may have a need, like businesses have a need to have users access sometimes be a little more relaxed so that they can perform their business functions, especially in a shared services kind of an environment. So in that case, it becomes key to monitor the transactions that they're doing. So transactions and monitoring of transactions can actually be very critical for as a compensation activity, as well as to just monitor any kind of errors or fraudulent activities. And so this is another step that typically is a continual process after going live with your ERP Cloud, analyzing transactions. And when you find the issues, you present them in front of investigators who can then investigate and remediate these issues. And we'll go into a lot more details in each of these different areas. And finally, as I just mentioned, like you close the loop with streamlined control management and compliance process that documents your risks and clouds, logs issues when controls are not working effectively, and it does ensure that controls are working effectively to mitigate the issues that has been enforced for. So this is basically just rehashing the same thing, that the basis of the 6 steps is so that, like when you work and basically implement those 6 steps or 6 activities, 3 going before going live and the 3 that we talked about after going live with the ERP Cloud. The essence of that is the idea is to configure once, deploy it, and let the automation take over. So that's the idea, that you essentially working your way towards this particular goal, saying that, hey, we want to configure our ERP Cloud once, you can deploy the configurations once, and then automation taking over, in the sense any anomalies, unexpected activities that are happening in the ERP processes are being automatically monitored by Risk Management Cloud, and thereby reducing effort and errors and increasing efficiency of the business. That's what we call as the ongoing control. You have the ongoing control. So let's just step back a little bit and take a broader view. We keep talking about Risk Management Cloud, and occasionally a lot of people ask, like, okay, so what is the risk in there? And we typically see risk as different ways. But let's look at the very basic definition of risk. So every organization actually see issues, and issues are probably like could be unwanted events or conditions, like whatever they see, like they could be some errors in their transactions happening. They may see access issues happening. These are all issues that organizations see. But sometimes they notice that these issues actually recur over a period of time with certain patterns. And as more and more of these issues with patterns arise, that's what becomes a risk. So issues become risks. And there are a few definitions of risk, and this has been illustrated by a standard ISO 31000, which has been there for almost like 15 years. And risk has always been defined as being a cause. Like there are external or internal factors that influence the business objectives that an organization may have and deter it and impact it, and that's what risk is. But I think over the last 1 year, like specifically in 2010, risk has been also being seen as an effect. So it's basically a deviation from what is expected. So you expect certain behavior in your business processes, and you suddenly start seeing deviations. And once the pattern of deviation happens, you see that as a risk. So apparently, a study has been done where organizations have been asked, like, what do you look at risk as? Is it a cause or an effect? And apparently, there has been a 50-50 division between organizations who think that their risks are a cause versus an effect. So holistically, this is what a risk is, and let's see now how we can systematically manage that risk. So the first step, of course, is to identify your issues. You start with the issue, like going back to the basic definition there, how do we get to a risk? So you first look at issues, you identify issues, you start addressing issues, then you start seeing patterns within these issues. Once you start seeing patterns, you want to then assess this risk in a more systematic manner. And that's where you describe your risk. You start saying, this is my risk because I've seen a pattern of this, there's a recurrence of that, and then you continually assess your risk with a particular frequency. And after assessing the risk, if the impact, after you perform your impact and likelihoods, you determine that this is a risk that we need to enforce controls for. And that's where you describe your controls and you deploy them and you enforce these controls. And that's the closed loop happens. And finally, you assess your control effectiveness. And as you go through this cycle, you may identify more issues and have a need to either deploy new controls or reassess your existing ones. So that's what systematic risk management is. So just taking another slice of it, or basically slicing the data in a different way from organization point of view, how do organizations look at risk? Now, managing risk is a top priority, as all of you probably have seen as you have had conversations with your customers. And it's always been a risk top priority, and even so today in the day and age where you see a lot of news articles coming out of fraudulent activities of organizations having to resort to strong risk management controls or raw enforcement of controls to mitigate a huge risk. And these are typically the privacy, the information security, and fraud are typically the top audit issues that we have seen. And the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners have also come up with a number, like according to the 2018 survey, that typical organizations who face these issues lose up to 5% of their revenue, which is a lot. Like it's not 5% of profit, but of revenue. So, risk becomes definitely a top priority, and managing risk becomes a top priority for the CFO, the C officers of the organizations. And that's where Risk Management Cloud comes in and helps to enforce and make your controls audit ready. And it becomes easier in the cloud because now risk management is completely integrated with your procurement, financials, and human capital management processes. And you can continually perform your audit and compliance workflows using risk management as part and parcel of your ERP and HCM cloud, and continually perform your security transaction and configuration analysis. So here's another like introducing some concepts here, and you guys are probably all very familiar with this. So there is this concept of standard controls, which is part of ERP Cloud. All ERP Cloud implementations require either implementing some or configuring additional controls. And these controls are typically like Cartesian-like controls, rules, and they are part and parcel of what you set up in probably Setup Manager in ERP Cloud. Advanced controls comes in and adds that huge layer of analysis, which is like more fuzzy in nature, and which actually, in addition to Cartesian, it can also perform advanced analytics like cluster analysis, anomaly detection, etc. And we'll go over some of the examples of that as we go through the next few days. But advanced controls basically adds that additional layer of performing these kind of advanced statistical analysis that probably are not part and parcel of standard controls. And essentially, this is how it does it, like Risk Management Cloud, and it has a whole set of processes that happens in the background, and users are only interfacing with a graphical offering workbench, which we'll see examples of today, some screenshots today, and then you're going to be working on that starting tomorrow. As you can see that there is already embedded data science in it, like the engine, the underlying engine of Risk Management Cloud or Advanced Controls, which is part of Risk Management Cloud, performs these pattern reasoning and ontology-based calculations and some reasoning, which allows users to just specify business attributes in their rules rather than the underlying attributes which are there in the database probably. And all the user needs to do is specify that using a workbench, and the underlying AI engine kicks in and is able to analyze using all of these different kind of algorithms, including clustering and fuzzy matching. So, in a nutshell, like just to summarize, the risk management is built in ERP and HCM Cloud, and it helps organizations ensure that they're secure, their roles are secure, and it ensures that their transactions and setups are secure, and makes them audit ready by these 6 steps. Before going live with your ERP Cloud, design secure roles using Risk Management Cloud, design secure role assignments, and then you certify your users' access. And after going live with your ERP Cloud, you don't stop right there. You continually keep monitoring your key setups and configurations, auditing your transactions, and then finally be able to have a streamlined control management process in place whereby you are able to report the state of your controls and your audit readiness to your auditors. So quick time check here. I think we can take maybe a 10 minutes break here, and let you guys just absorb what you saw and think about it a little bit. If you have questions, you can put it on the chat window. We may not be able to get to it during the presentation, but we promise that we'll look at your questions and answer them as much as possible right after, where we have a dedicated Q&A section. So Henry, we'll be taking a 10-minute break, and we'll be back in maybe 10:50.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I will stop recording right now, and when we are back, I will record again, okay?
Okay. Cool. Cool. Thanks.